Nikki, welcome to the Balancing Busy podcast. Everybody else that's here, I'm so excited you're here too. We are talking to the founder of Scrolling to Death. And so will you just give us a quick moment, introduce yourself, kind of share where this came from and what your mission is?
Sure. So Scrolling to Death is a podcast and also turning into a lot more. I just started a nonprofit, actually. I started another organization called Tech Safe Learning because I started worrying about school-issued devices as my kids were getting older. Anyway, I used to be a social media marketing executive, targeting people on social media and manipulating their decisions. And, was feeling really like that wasn't making me feel good. I also, at the time, hadn't been on social media personally in 3 years. So you said you haven't been on social media really either, which is great. But I was loving that life. And around that same time, started researching. Actually, a Surgeon General warning came out that year. I think it was 2023. And it said that kids who spend 3 or more hours a day on social media face double the risk of anxiety and depression. And I also saw that kids are on social media 7+ hours a day. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. So I started digging in further and saw that suicide rates for young kids had been increasing. And that really aligned with us giving them access to smartphones and social media. And I thought, why doesn't every parent know these things? And then I started learning about the stories of harm. So kids who have passed away because of something that happened on social media or a design choice by the social media companies. And I felt like parents deserve to know this information so we can make the safest choices possible. And that's when Scrolling to Death, the podcast, started. And that was late 2023. And I've done hundreds of episodes, mainly with parents who have experienced some sort of harm and want to warn other parents and educate us, but also with experts and attorneys and lawmakers, and just trying to put a lot of effort into forcing the tech companies to be safer so that we can allow our children to enjoy technology and not have to worry about them.
So I want to pull back to that is just a fascinating number that the Surgeon General had warned 3 hours can lead to depression. And yet we both know that the average is double that, if not often triple that.
Right. That's right.
Right? So, I mean, we're in super risk at that point, right?
Yeah.
And yet you've heard all the things, I know you have. It's so hard to pull them back and take away the phone if you've already given some of these things. And it's really hard as parents. And we're coming up on summer. And I know that always gets to be a very tricky time of year where a lot of parents are like, they were in school. I at least had them occupied for X amount of hours. What's your advice for coming into summertime and making it a limited tech? I know there's some that'll even do tech free, but what are some strategies and ideas you have for parents?
Yeah, so I think minimal as possible. I mean, kids, it's summer, no matter where you are, it's probably sunny and or the weather's nice enough where they should be outside. And so I would try, I'm conservative with it. I would say do no tech during the week still. They do not need to be on a sunny day sitting in front of the video game console. And so it's get outside. If you're not going to limit it entirely, it's very, very strict time limits. These games were built to be so addictive. The more time your kids spend on there, the higher their risk of being contacted by a predator or experiencing terrible cyberbullying or some other kind of harm. So I would say limit the time to as small as possible if you are going to let them on tech at all during the daytime. I would say, all year round, no tech in the bedrooms at nighttime. I would say coordinating with other parents. So really having a united front on whatever you decide are your limits and trying to all be on the same page, because you want your kids to be able to go to their friend's house, but what are they doing at their friend's house? Are they on those screens all day there? And so maybe also taking some time to review your parental controls. So have you worked with your internet company on the router level to block anything that you wouldn't want your kids to have access to. Have you checked the device the device parental controls? So if it's a gaming platform or an iPad or a phone, taking another refreshed look at their parental controls, and then also the gaming platform controls or the social media platform controls. So there's like layers of parental controls, but just spending like an hour or two refreshing that going into the summer, because a lot of times an update will push through and there'll be a bug and it doesn't work anymore, or there's always changes. And so I would say take that time to refresh that. That can be a good protective element for the summer.
Okay. These are all so good. And I want to kind of narrow in on, I am in such agreement with you. The best thing for our kids is to be outside, is to be playing, using their imaginations, and even having enough time to get bored. And so this is where the systems nerd in me is like, okay, but what are going to be our systems so that we make sure that these things happen? And so I can share a couple things that I've done, and I know you've, heard of and done way more. So it would be so fun to hear yours too. So one thing that my kids are all way older now, but when they were younger, one of the things that is a mom quote that they absolutely despise, but I said it a lot, was, you can't be bored unless you're boring. And so anytime they would try to say, I'm bored, I'd be like, can't be bored unless you're boring. And you're not boring. But one of the things we would do is we would make a board list. And I especially made sure I did this at the beginning of the summer, where we would try to brainstorm out as many ideas of things they could do as possible that had nothing to do with screens. So we would just make this huge list, and it would stay on the fridge. They could go look at it when they were like, I don't know what to do. Go look at the list. Go see if something, sparks. The other thing I was thinking about, this is a conversation I've actually had with my sister quite a bit, with trying to regulate screen time, is that you set a limit. So you say, okay, you can't be on Xbox more than 45 minutes. That's it. You get 45 minutes and you're done. But then she goes off, she's doing chores, she's working on a bunch of things. She doesn't realize how much time has gone off. And they're kids. Let's just be honest. They're probably not the best at self-regulation. And so even just realizing this is such a simple little system, but there is a timer that's going off that you are going to hear, not just them, right? Because they're like, I mean, we've all been tempted. They hear the timer, they're like, I'm just gonna add a little more to that. And so whether that's your watch and, you're gonna have that timer there, or one that everyone can hear through the house, but just some of those simple strategies, because we can say all these things, but then you get into real life and you're trying to get things done and it gets really hard. And then I would love to ask you, because I feel like this has got to come up as a question for the parents who have younger kids. So they're like, yes, I would love for my child to be outside all day, but that means I need to be outside all day, and I have other things to do. And so talk me through your advice for that.
Yeah. So a couple things came to mind, and I say boredom is an opportunity, and they hate that, but I think it's like you have to give them that opportunity to be bored, because that's where they get creative, and they may complain and complain and complain, especially if your kid is on screens a lot and then you're transitioning them to not be on screens a lot. They need a time to like develop that muscle again of pushing past the boredom. So put in that time.
I'm going to interject really quick. I will say I have consistent. So just so everybody knows, my kids now are 21, 19, 17. Okay. So we have gone through the whole age bracket of this. And I have consistently found, and my sister, as we've talked about this, we both have said this, takes about 2 weeks. We all mess up. We start letting them have way too much screen time, right? Like life got busy. You got distracted. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, we have been way too much screen. We're pulling this. And it takes about 2 weeks before they really get their creativity back and are like, they have their own ideas of what to do. And they're not just like stalking you around the house because they're basically trying to wear you down, right? And then what has been so fascinating is, okay, so we have about this 2 week window. Then all of a sudden they're doing great. So now we go 2 or 3 weeks where it's like, they have been doing phenomenal. But then they'll come to you and they'll be like, I've been barely doing it. Please, can I? And then if you are not so intentional and careful, you go right back into the loop again.
But we know better, you know better what's going to happen from there. And so, it's worth that making them disappointed. It's worth disappointing them, and doing that hard work. But I would say that what came to me is, this over the last couple decades, we've gotten real protective of our kids. We're not letting them go play outside anymore. And I interviewed an incredible woman named Lenore Skenazy, and she has an organization called Let Grow and a book as well. But she talks about the importance of letting your kids get outside independently, screen-free, not tracking them, and letting them explore a little bit. Is there a park around the corner they can go to? A neighbor's house 10 doors down? Like, I know some parents are like letting their kids go to the store around the corner by themselves. So I would say, parents, if you can let yourself be a little uncomfortable this summer and let your kids go a little further, explore a little further, that gives them confidence, and it really feels good for you once you get past that discomfort and they come home and they're so proud of themselves because they did something that was a little bit uncomfortable. I'm having conversations in my personal life with some friends that their kid is, 7, 8, 9, and they want to get a watch for the summer for the kids so they can let them go and explore a little further out of the neighborhood or around the neighborhood. And I totally get wanting to track your kid and make sure they can get a hold of you in an emergency or if they get hurt. But I also want parents to think about, once you give a device, it's so hard to step back from that. And there's so many good lessons in your kid getting out and being in a situation that might be a little bit uncomfortable and having to rely on people around them, parents around them. Your neighborhoods, most neighborhoods are very safe. The odds of your kid getting kidnapped or whatever, like, they're way overstated. This is a very, very rare occurrence. And so there's so much value in letting your kid explore in a disconnected way, knowing, make sure they know that they go to another parent, make sure they know they can knock on any door and ask for help if they need it, if they're lost or whatever may come their way. So I think that's a good reminder, is even if you have a young-ish kid, like, let them play in the front yard. Let them knock on a neighbor's door that might have a kid. They can go play out front. Also, there's a new product called Angel Q, which I really like because you talked about, setting a timer. Now, Angel Q is basically a safer internet browser, and it's available in the App Store. But what I like about it is your kid can explore the internet in a really safe way, but they can also, which I don't let my kids, but if you choose this, they can go on YouTube or streaming like Disney Plus, and it's like there's a buffer between the bad content, and so they're more protected. And you can text from your phone and be like, tell the app to tell your kid that you want them off in 5 minutes, and it'll give them like a gentle reminder. So it's not coming from you, it's like coming from the technology, which I think is like an interesting approach, and somehow they accept that more and don't do this big like outburst reaction. So I think there's coming to be safer options for our kids to enjoy technology in a non-addictive way that the parents have a lot more control. But we're just like on the edge of that. So there's also thinking about like what technology and what apps is your kid accessing during the summer too, or at any point.
Yes. So you touched on, and I want to kind of drive this home because I think as moms, we need to be talking about this idea of letting our kids go out without us.
I know.
It's been ingrained in us that we're bad parents if we do that. And that is just wrong. It's not true. It has been so overhyped, this idea that there's danger everywhere.
Yes.
When statistically we're safer than ever
That's
before.
right.
The danger is on the internet. It's not in your neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
And yet we saw these videos. It was overly reported on the news, and it created this fear. I remember when my kids were really little, I would let them play in the backyard. But I remember very much feeling like I would be a bad mom if I had let them be in the front yard. And that was wrong. Like, I wish I could go back because And the whole neighborhood did that. And so even though there were kids, no one knew each other. And they were playing together.
It makes me sad.
Yeah. There's
some stat like your kid would have to be out front for 14 million years before they got kidnapped or something like that. That's how rare it is.
You hear something like that. And you're like, maybe we need to pull back on that. And I think having these conversations with other parents,
Mhm.
being able to, and everybody's at their different comfort level, right? And we want to honor that, but being maybe being the trendsetter who's being willing to get a little uncomfortable and to let
Yeah.
our kids have these experiences. You mentioned it it does create this confidence in them,
Mhm.
and they feel so proud of themselves and so excited about what they've accomplished. And
Yeah.
I can think back to my childhood, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was out all kinds of
Mhm.
places miles from my house with no one knowing where we were, and we were safe, and we had a great time, and we learned great things, and we made up huge stories in our heads that someone was
Mhm.
following us. It was never happening, but it sure
Yeah.
made it feel more exciting as a little kid. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for those
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah, and
And
just
then we see our
because
kids afraid to
I'm
go into a grocery store by
yeah,
themselves.
and just because we have the option to strap a watch on them, does that mean we should? And we really need to think about what is that doing for them, for us? What problem is that solving? And is there any other solution? Because when you give them that tech, it just takes away from that independence, those lessons and those memories of being out really truly on your own. Like your parent can't get a hold of you, you can't get a hold of your parent. Those are some core things that you need to build within yourself that they're missing out on. And we are seeing kids that are afraid to make phone calls, afraid to go into a store and speak to somebody, afraid to, not getting jobs because they can't do a job interview, a face-to-face connection. Like it really builds into this bigger thing, these seemingly small choices at younger ages.
Yes. I'm, of course, my mind's going to Anxious Generation, to that book,
Yeah.
which I think does such a great job really advocating for letting our kids have a little bit of safe danger, we'll say,
Yeah.
right? Like these
Yeah.
experiences.
Mhm.
So have you by chance seen the show Old Enough on Netflix?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, you have got to watch this. Everyone
Okay.
needs to watch just one. The episodes, I don't think I've ever seen one more than 15 minutes. So
Okay.
everyone just has to watch one. So it's actually a show from Japan. And so it's going to be subtitles the whole time, but it's little ones running their first errand. And when I say little ones, I mean
Aw.
under 5 years old little ones.
Uh-huh.
And our family spent about six
Wow.
weeks in Japan a few years ago.
Mhm.
And I remember vividly being in awe, being amazed, because I was watching little 5-year-olds,
Mhm.
kindergartners, right? Working the entire transit system. They are getting onto the train systems themselves.
Uh-huh.
They might get on, there's two or three of them, but then you see them each getting off at different stops, and they're all in their little tiny school uniforms, and they are walking through the streets. And this was, anyway, we were quite a few different places
Mhm.
in Japan, but this was in Tokyo. This is a
Yeah.
crazy, huge city. And then it
Yeah.
was also when we were out further in Osaka and some other places. And
Mhm.
I could not stop watching and paying attention, because I'm like, we would never do this in the States.
No.
Never.
And why
And so
not?
this
And why
show,
not?
right. So this
Yeah.
show, it's them running their first errand. And I'm telling you, it is so inspiring, because
Yeah.
you watch these little kids, you watch them get it wrong. You
Mhm.
watch them as they can't remember what they were supposed to do. And these are big errands. Go to the store and buy 3 things. And they're 3 years old. And we're like,
Aw.
can you find your shoes? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just mind blowing. And you
Wow.
see them make mistakes. You see them get frustrated, get confused, go ask for help. And then you see the elation
Uh-huh.
when they get home
Mhm.
and they were successful. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we need more of this in our parenting. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's on Netflix. It used to be called First Errand, but now it's called Old Enough.
Okay.
And it's back from 1991. It's so old, but it is
I'm
so cute and so
surprised.
inspiring.
I'm so surprised I haven't heard of that yet. I will watch that. And it sounds a lot like Lenore Skenesi's work that I mentioned. And I have an interview with her that's really fascinating. And she actually let her son at 9 years old ride the subway in New York on his own. And there was this whole press
Oh,
situation. Like
she
she got
got
called the worst parent in
destroyed for
America.
it.
Yeah. And she made this whole movement out of it, the importance of independence play and free range. And I love it. And it's hard for me too, and already this conversation has me thinking, what are my kids going to do this summer? is there are not a lot of kids that go out front and play, but I know there are kids that, so I'm going to be like, go find where the kids are and go play with them. Go, I know 3 doors down, they have a basketball hoop in the front that they never use. Like, go ask them if you can use their basketball hoop, like things like that. So it's good to prepare and make a list. I love that idea that you had.
Right. I mean, just trying to make a plan because it really is true. I think about, I'm like, okay, no one in our neighborhood was in their front yards.
Yeah.
No one was, I mean, I didn't feel like I had any help
Yeah.
in trying to figure this out. And I remember sending the kids over to a couple neighbors. Like, I knew there were kids. I'd seen them in the car, like basically like
Yeah.
going into the garage and out. So I'm like, I know there's kids over there.
Oh.
And, and getting them to go knock on the door, and which was really big and scary. And I'll be honest, those kids didn't quite, like, they didn't hit it off. They were really busy and like, it didn't quite work, but I'm so glad that they tried. And I think that we have to think about that too, right? Like, it's okay if it doesn't work out, like letting them have these little mini quote unquote failures is actually going to make them more resilient.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have them in camps for about half the summer, but who has the money to spend on camps all summer? Maybe some people, but it's expensive. And so there is a lot of home time, and that can be seemingly easily filled with technology, and we have to get ahead of that.
Absolutely. So what do you do? I mean, you have your podcast, you have work. It's not like you can be available all summer, and part of it's going to be camps. What do you do in that other time?
Yeah, great. So I set my alarm for about 5:24 in the morning, and I work for about an hour and a half before they wake up. And sometimes they wake up and they know that they have till about 6:37 when I'm working, and that's just when I'm going to start making breakfast. So that just adjusting my schedule, that would have sounded crazy to me maybe when my kids were a little bit younger and not all sleeping through the night and things were a bit more chaotic. But now it's just a schedule where I go to bed with them by like 8:39, like I'm asleep. So that works really well, the morning time. Then I feel like I've already gotten a lot done. So now I, feed them and I'm getting them ready for now school. But during the summer, I think it's going to be time blocking. I think it's going to be, they know that at this time we're going to the community pool, but until then I am working. If it's a call and my door's closed, unless there's an emergency, like, you guys need to figure something out. But I think it's also getting outside of my comfort zone. There is a park. No, they have to cross a street, but it's a little teeny neighborhood street, and I'm going to send them up to that playground at the park by themselves. I'm going to commit to doing that.
I love that.
Yeah, and then I think coordinating play dates is is a lot of work. And
It's
then
so much work. I'm with you.
I know. I don't think there's a lot of that's gonna happen. So I think it's the time blocking. It's the making a list of options if they do run out of things that they could do. But I think with giving them a bit more freedom to get outside, I think that will really be helpful. And my youngest is still 4, and she will be in a preschool program most of the day. And so it is just my 7 and 9-year-old who are more capable of exploring and getting into some safe trouble.
Yes. And I think that safe trouble, it really is so powerful. That's what drives that true confidence, is when we try something we didn't know we could do and we find out we can.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing feeling. And we accidentally take that from our kids. And I can look back. I can see where it came from. I didn't want them to feel pain. I didn't want them to be uncomfortable. I wanted to help smooth the path. I'm reading too many books. I always am reading several books at a time.
Yeah.
I think this is in Comfort Crisis. It's one of the books I'm reading right now. And something that he kind of mentioned in that book that I was like, oh my gosh. So he was talking about how we used to be helicopter parents and we hovered, but now we've become snowplow parents, where we're literally plowing the path in front of them. We don't want anything in their way, nothing uncomfortable, nothing hard. Like, we're coming through and removing every obstacle beforehand. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's really true. There really has been this shift from what was once just hovering. It has actually taken on a next level, and it's not good. We can all see that it hasn't worked out well.
No, and I mean, think about when kids have devices at school too, and then they're in any uncomfortable moment, they get a bad grade, a kid's being a little mean to them, whatever, they're texting their mom, complaining about it, and the mom's comforting them. But those are really important things to just sit through and tell your mom when they pick you up. This is just basic skills that they need to get through life, and
Yeah.
we're taking it away from them by giving them the option of always reaching out to us or just removing that obstacle in the first place.
And I'll take that a step further. It's not only doing that, what everyone is going to end up realizing too late, if you're in this pattern, um, they're being robbed of the opportunity to rely on friendships. So
Right.
one of the
Yeah.
things that we're seeing is that there aren't these strong friendships anymore.
Mhm.
They all want it. They see it on the shows. They want their very best friend, but they're not talking about the deep stuff. Things stay very surface. There's this nervousness, especially in the tween teen years,
Mhm.
to take a relationship from like a very casual Snapchat or texting conversation or just hey in class to actually hanging out. And those
Mhm.
bonds happen when something happens and you talk about it, you're
Yeah.
vulnerable. But if you don't ever have to be vulnerable with classmates
Mhm.
because you can text your mom and tell her and she's your comfort, which let's be honest, we're pretty great at that job. So,
Yeah.
they're going to default to us,
Yeah.
then they're missing those deeper relationships and those opportunities at school with friends.
Mhm. And I'll take that even a step further. One
Okay.
of a report I saw about um, youth suicide actually talked about preventative factors, and it recommended that one of the factors that's important to their mental health for young kids is having a bond in a relationship with an adult at school. So that's be a teacher or a counselor or the principal, someone that your child feels like they can go to and have and talk about these things is really an important factor. And that kind of like a light bulb went off. I don't think a lot of kids have that anymore with the constant distractions at school, not feeling present.
Oh, that's so good. That's so
Mhm.
true. So again, it's I think it all keeps coming back to this ripple effect. We're seeing something and we're doing the best we can as parents, but we're seeing something and we're only just starting to realize these ripples. I mean, something as simple as they have a device at school, they have a hard moment, and they text us and say, "Can you come pick me up?" Or, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I can't believe this just happened." And maybe we do come pick them up. Maybe we intervene and we call the school and, we try to help them. And that feels so good. It feels like I am being an advocate for my child. I am being a good parent.
Mhm.
And in some situations, yes, that may very much be what needs to happen.
Mhm.
But just in this conversation, we're now seeing how if we do that every time, if that becomes the default, that can rob them of friendships. It can rob them of their own ability to self-soothe, to self-regulate, and it can rob them of building relationships with those adults that can
Yeah.
be another advocate in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why a lot of states are banning phones bell to bell in schools, and I mean, dozen plus now, and a lot more are taking a look at that legislation. So we're realizing the issues, the really really tough issues when kids have access to any technology at school, smartwatch, smartphone, and so they're starting to take them away from the kids or lock them up all day long and allow the kids to learn and to engage face to face. And so parents can make that choice for them, the safer, healthier choice by not sending them to school with the device.
Yeah. And it is going to be hard. I think it's very real that your child is going to tell you that you are the worst and that it is the worst and
Yeah.
that they are the only one and they're right. Like
Mhm.
it is so hard. I work with youth all the time and I will tell you I see them almost all on their phones and I see the kid who comes in with no phone and they're like, "Well, I don't know what to do. Everyone else is looking at a phone. Like, how do
Mhm.
I even approach and engage?" And
Yeah.
um, we've had a lot of conversations, like with the youth that I work with. I've had a lot of conversations about how when you're looking at a phone, you are not approachable. you look like you're like, don't bug me. And
Mhm.
so you're sitting there lonely. What you want is someone to come talk to you, to be your friend. And yet you're closing those opportunities and closing those doors. And is it awkward and uncomfortable to just be standing there and kind of like, oh, I look unsure? Yes. Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Right.
But is that the gateway to somebody coming over
Mhm.
and being like, oh, you don't look so sure, so I feel confident enough to come preach and
Yeah.
say hello?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Parents too. Parents, I just try
It's
to,
so true.
you
This
know,
is this is across the board. This is
yeah.
adults, this is teens, this is all of us. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the issues that come with being the one left out by not having that device, they're not as bad as what your kid deals with once they are given that device. And your job as the parent increases 100-fold trying to protect them from these platforms that are built to addict and harm them. So it's it's a hard choice to have them be the one left out, but it's the safer choice, it's a healthier choice, and your job is not to be their friend. Your job is to keep them safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question for you is tech habits for us as parents.
Mhm.
What do you feel that we need to do? Is this a do as I say, not as I do? Is this an example? What do we need to do as parents within all of this?
Yeah, I think it's mostly a do as I do. I have to do it. I have to mirror that activity as well, which sucks. But because, a lot of us have jobs that we need to check in on and be available or other kids moving about. So I think that it is never, as a parent, using your phone passively in front of your children. And that means you're not scrolling on Instagram, you're not watching a show, you're not reading the news, like, not for work. I think it's no games, no passive use in front of your kids. And I think if you need to use it for something productive, work, family wise, you narrate what you're doing so that your kid understands that it can be used as a tool and you are now using it as a tool. But then when you're done, you're going to put it down and put it away. And I think putting it down and putting it away means out of your like off of your person, as far away from you as possible. Turn the ringer on so you can hear it if someone calls. But I think that and I struggle with it too, but because these platforms are so addictive to everyone, but we really have to try not to use it passively in front of our kids. Um, I think for parents, there was a recent study that we all know screen time is bad before bed and it makes it harder to sleep. But there was a study that showed that the worst type of screen time before bed is doom scrolling on social media.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so it's trying not to do the Instagram scrolling or the YouTube shorts scrolling before bed. And I know when I do that, like it's harder for me to fall asleep. I feel worse falling asleep. And so, yeah. And then just someone told me recently, I'll end with this one. Someone said, I think they have teenagers. I'll get my kids together and I'll, to talk about screen time, but I'll tell them I want to talk about my screen time as the adult. So I want them to tell me how they think I'm doing with my screen time. And so they have a discussion about, is mom using her phone too much in front of them and how that makes them feel. And then it obviously turns into a discussion about everyone's screen time, but really realizing and being honest about how much you're using it and involving your child in that conversation, that the goal is to use it as less as possible, as least as possible, and use it as a tool. And that's hard for adults too. And so it's like can be an open, honest conversation between everyone.
I think that is so powerful and it can be hard to hear,
Mhm.
but it opens a door and a vulnerability and can help us make such a difference. In 2018, I decided to take a 10-day break from social media. So it was
Mhm.
a 10-day break from fake. It was actually our youth that were invited to do this 10-day social media detox.
Mhm.
And I was one of the leaders. And so I was like, you know what? I'll do it with them.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, but I'm going to do this with them so that I can like
Yeah.
support them. Right.
Right.
I almost didn't remove the apps. I almost was like, oh, I'll just not be on it. And then I was like, no, I'll just delete them. And my whole reasoning was like, I don't even know my passwords. It will take me forever to get back into these things.
Yep.
But I'm like, no, I'm going to delete them. So it was 10 days. I could not believe the difference that I felt over those 10 days. In fact, I had, preparing for this episode, I had gone and found the original podcast from June of 2000 or blog post from June of 2018 when I talked about it. And I said, as the days went by, I noticed significant changes in how I felt, what I was accomplishing, and in my relationship with my kiddos and my hubby.
Yeah.
Life felt easier. I felt happier, more engaged in life, and more inspired. I couldn't believe this, all of it because I wasn't on social media. And I think about that. So I got done with it. And I shared it with a girlfriend who, her and I know each other. We've spoken a lot of the same conferences. She has a huge social media platform. I mean, this is a huge part of her income is her social media.
Yeah.
And I was telling her about it. And she's like, I think I want to try it. And so she decided to go off. And same thing. She's texting me and like, I can't believe how much I'm getting done. I can't believe how creative I am. She's an artist. And she's like, my creativity has gone through the roof, even though I thought like, oh, I'm looking for inspiration. And so then we ended up, in the end, we decided to go to our audiences and we decided to invite them to do this as well. And we had thousands who did it with us, and we surveyed them each day for the 10 days and asked them how they were feeling and all these things. And I will totally admit it. I sobbed when I read some of these answers because they were talking about how, I remember one woman saying she had looked in the mirror and didn't hate herself for the first time, and she couldn't remember how long. And another woman said, we actually sat down and ate dinner as a family together. And another woman said, my kids have been so much happier. I didn't realize how much time I was stealing from them because of my phone. And so this is a we problem. And I think it's easy to feel guilt and shame and to think, maybe I'm the only one who has this addiction, but they're designed to be addictive and they're very good at what they do.
And that's the most important part, is it's not our fault that we've been, the choice hasn't been taken away from us. We're not given a choice anymore. The way that they've integrated wholly into our lives and our social lives and our personal lives and our family lives doesn't give us a choice. The addictive features they choose to use to keep us on and keep us scrolling, it's nearly impossible to resist it. And so that's why I work really hard to get laws passed to require these companies to not be as addictive. And right now we're focusing on children and the experience for minors. But this very much is a conversation that's going to extend to adults and we would be so much happier just as it is now without these platforms entirely. But allow there to be for other platforms to come into the market that don't addict us. And there are entrepreneurs building these platforms, but right now there's a monopoly between a few platforms that have now some kind of political leverage too. And it's not fair, but it's also not our fault. And so we can do the best you can as a parent, but give yourself some grace too, I think is important.
I love that. Absolutely. And I think, just realizing we surveyed, when we did the survey, we asked education level, income level, all these things. Average education was a master's. Average income for these women was 6 figures and above. I mean, if there's anyone you think would be able to handle social media and technology, I'm going to go ahead and just say it's this demographic. You have a bunch of moms who, try to manage it all, have great education, and to read their answers. And I think that just solidifies to me that if we, with our fully developed brains, our educations, our million things that are asked of us, if we're struggling to manage our technology habits, our kids don't stand a chance.
No.
And so we need to step in and help them.
Yeah. We can be addicted, I think, to productivity, right? Highly productive women, moms.
Yes.
And so we're addicted to the productivity. So we always have to be doing something. But then when you're on social media, it's like this endless pointless, meaningless. Like, you're not getting anything done. You're actually wasting time, but you're kind of feeling like, oh, I just need to zone out for a second. But then you feel worse at the end. So we just need to be really honest with how we feel after. And the fact that if we want to be productive, successful women, that's not helping us at all towards that goal.
Yes. Oh, amen. Nikki,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having this conversation with me and chatting with us. Where can everybody find you?
Sure. So scrollingtodeath.com with a number 2, and everything's there. The podcast, social media links, email, all that info.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.